Hi there. Let's take a look at discussion boards 6 through 10. I don't typically do this many at once, but the demon flew from hell. Don't recommend it, particularly in the middle of the semester, but I finally won, so I'm pretty happy about that. Let's look at the leaderboard for discussion board 6, and this is talking about data breach investigations. Isha is hard to beat Michelle. She was the first to post February 5th. Stacy not far behind and did it on my mom's birthday. And then you got to appreciate the ones that do it like I often do, the just-in-time model. And Wadi, wait, don't forget me, Waga, I apologize for the pronunciation, finished just before the buzzer. But that was fine too. When we look at the investigating a data breach, we often use digital forensics. This is not like what you see on TV. It's usually very, very boring, like most jobs, I guess. You're looking at cells all day, perhaps. You're running fingerprints all day. Or you're following up on some of your active cases to see what's going on, where they stand. When you have technology, you do not do like they do on TV and run in and sit down and try to type in the password. Oh, let's guess it is the dog's name and his date of birth. There it is, we're in. You don't touch the technology. You wait until it's completely copied and then you use the copied technology, not the original. The original is never touched. They might have it set up to wipe it clean if you try so many times, or you just don't know. So you don't mess with the technology. So a day in the life, you're collecting data, hair samples, fingerprints, any sort of bodily fluids, very meticulous. You don't want to leave anything behind because if you do, it's going to come up in court that perhaps you didn't collect it in the right way. You're using highly specialized labs to analyze your trace evidence. Often the FBI has these types of labs, but others may not. You typically have at least a bachelor's degree and oftentimes well beyond that and experience. And you have the ability to interpret the data and the analysis that goes along with it. You interpret the data and share that with the detectives and the others investigating and the attorneys, and they may use it in a court or they may not. So you've got the myth and the reality. So digital forensics and something they call the CSI effect. The myth is all crime scenes receive that same rigorous workup that you see on TV. Every fiber, every hair, every blood drop, everything collected. And then CSI agents, they solve the crime, usually in 42 minutes, depending on commercials. Results are ready immediately. I need to know somebody's DNA. I do it, boom, got it. One piece of evidence solves the case. Here, DNA, they were there. We won. And forensics are perfect. There's no doubt everything's good. However, in reality, oftentimes you don't have the resources to go and look at every single crime scene. And in reality, you're presenting what you find to the detectives. They go out, bring it all together from all other CSIs who are working on the case, and with witness statements, and with photographs, and with technology, and with digital evidence, and they bring it all together. Sometimes there's backlogs of years or more. There are so many cases that have never been tested, and depending on the city and the state, they just don't have the resources. They solve crimes that are 20 years old sometimes. So the cases are built not just on what the CSI person comes up with, that one hair that contributes to the whole story that they're trying to tell, the detective and the attorneys, but you're not going to hold it up and say, I won, we're good. In addition, like everything else, you make errors. The the refrigerator goes out, electricity goes out, and you lose samples. Things are contaminated. Someone opens it by accident. It spills. All sorts of things go on that has to be dealt with. Nothing is ever perfect. So what do? You probably gather fingerprints. You do DNA, you try to gather samples there. You look at blood spatter evidence to try to tell the story of what happened when. From that, you hope to identify, hey, there's a suspect. They don't all have fingerprints. They don't all have DNA, although things like 23andMe and Ancestry are making it a little easier when you can do familial DNA. And you, of course, examine their technology. Not until it's cloned, it's copied. You hope to be able to help check off some of the information the detective has. Okay, this person said they were, in Chicago at this time, and look, their phone shows they were. I can show you their phone at least was in Chicago. That's one piece of evidence that they may not have committed this murder in Atlanta or wherever it might be. Very occasionally, you'll get the opportunity to exonerate someone who was put in jail and is innocent. Most people in jail are guilty, but there's things like the Innocence Project where people are truly innocent. They may not have much money, they may have been in jail for 30 years, and if there's evidence that can be tested with today's technology like DNA and can make a difference, then they may be taken on and you may be able to exonerate someone. That's rare. Let's look at discussion board 7 leaderboard. This is when we used autopsy to decide if you wanted to prosecute someone. Robert said, don't touch the original files. I agree with Robert. Toby said, out of my way. He did 4 posts, not just the 2 required. Remy, reveal the files. How can I hide it from forensics if I want to? And was asking for a friend, not for himself. Isha Shah, 256. I just like how they came together. She looked at hash values before and after to determine if the file had changed. And Whitey watch read only and hash value. So when you're reviewing files, you never directly edit or tamper with any original files. It doesn't matter if you agree with the law or the rule that they're asking you to assess. You do what you're supposed to do. You follow the law. If it conflicts too much with your ethics or your morals, then you probably should find another job. You're simply reporting what you find. Is someone framed? Well, you can check access logs, you can check messages. There are ways you can check this to find out. Sometimes you cannot find out. You do the best you can with the evidence given. Hashes make sure that the files are unchanged, and more on this later. Discussion board 8 leaderboard, the Darknet Diaries. Alex Revel, would you pay ransomware? Some companies do, some don't. If you do, then they may be incentivized to do it again. If you don't, then you may lose all your files. So you have to make a decision there. Chasing says, I listened to Chris Rock, but it's not that Chris Rock, which I kind of liked, and talked about ethics, morals, and protecting data. Kurt said, call the police. We found a kill list. It was funny, but still people didn't know it and were actually trying to kill their spouse or whoever. Danny said, don't forget psychology. Said this several times, and that's correct. Dean said, physical security is important. He watched Mad Dog, but physical security is equally important. Don't hold the door open. Don't lose your key card if you do let people know. And Jermaine watched Aleth and talked about the hacker mindset and ethics and how those went together or not. Justin watched Tornado and talked about digital assets and how they were licensed that you don't own. You don't own a book you buy, you don't own a song you play. You license it for your use and following the guidelines given. Marissa listened to Jeremiah and said, you got to balance security with ease of use. You can't make it where it takes 3 hours to get into the building unless there's a need to. It's so secure, you got to do that. Micah also listened to Jeremiah and said manage access and perhaps ethical hacking. We'll come back to that. Toby said responsibilities of ethical hackers. You got to make sure you do what you're supposed to do. I'm going to come back to ethical hackers again. Sebastian listened to Justina and hacktivism, where they did a distributed denial of service attack on a hospital, and said, did they go too far? Sheldon looked at hijacked line and pointed out something that is absolutely true. We're the weakest link. Whenever you get down to us, if we're linked up to governmental servers or if we're a small county agency, we're the weakest link. You get into us, you may be able to get into the bigger guys. So everybody must protect the data they have. So challenges you might go through. Well, ransomware, we already talked about. You, as an employee of your organization, have a fiduciary responsibility to protect the data that you have access to. You need to exhibit ethics and morals and follow the law. And if the law is in conflict, you have to make a decision if you can continue working there. Do ethical hackers exist? No. Hackers are people who illegally go into computer network systems technologies. Ethical hackers are cybersecurity researchers who are out researching networks in general. They're not trying to break into anywhere. They're not seeking any kind of remuneration money or whatever. So a hacker, in my view, can't be white hat, black hat. A hacker is a criminal. They are breaking into a system. Now they can have morals and decide they want to turn it around and let you know or not. How far is too far for hacktivism? You know, the Westboro Baptist Church, the one that holds up ugly signs for when veterans die. You can look them up. They've had all sorts of stuff done to them. They've had thousands of pizzas delivered. They've had their phone numbers doxed. They've had everything. And yeah, you have to just decide how far is too far. Anonymous has done some of this stuff, and there are many other groups out there. Will the police respond if you found a kill list online? The one thing we were talking about before. Maybe, maybe not. It really depends on many factors, but you might want to report it at least. Who do you call if you have a breach? It depends. You may be required by law to alert your stakeholders, your shareholders, the people who have a stake in your company, or you may be ethically and professionally and even morally obligated to tell people when you do have a breach. It depends on what type of company you're in. And why do people behave badly? Well, because they're people. We all behave badly at some point or other. So security is a responsibility of everyone. You have to go through training, education, and awareness. You have to stay up to date, and you have to make it hard for you to be the weakest link. Don't forget physical security. Close the door behind you. Don't let someone use your badge. If your password gets stolen, then change it and let somebody know. Let's go to the discussion board 9 leaderboard. Alex responded to 2 posts. Thank you. Ruda said, duh. I'm going to work in cybersecurity. Of course I'll use hashing. Micah said, my money's on hashing. Remy said, I can't post the screenshots. I would post the screenshots to show you what happened, but they're not suitable for class. Isha did several in-depth, informative responses to classmate questions, which I appreciate that. Chasing said, honestly, I just skip over all those long numbers. And for that, Chasing gets the Sparkler Award and honesty, points for honesty. So hashing, when you do hashing, you start with an input file, and then as you make changes, the hash changes every time you do something different. Even if it's a tiny little change, it still makes a change in the file in the hash, so you can see that something was changed. And these are just 4 examples. You did several in your exercise as well. Discussion board 10. Alex said hide zip in the ping file and use it for espionage. Andrew said practical use, protect your IP. This might be a way you can do that with steganography. Brandon said there's lots of uses for a business for steganography, for hiding stuff, espionage. Dean said make it simple but effective security. Jermaine said just asking about ethical and unethical hackers. Moving on, Dawn said we can use some things like steg expose and steg hide to look at the files that might have been tampered with. Francesca also said steg detect works. Isha said I'm hiding right in front of you. You don't even know it. Leslie said if it is done well, it is undetectable. And said she might be paranoid. Here's the thing. You're not paranoid if they're really watching you. If you're a cybersecurity person or you're going to work in a field related to cybersecurity and you're not paranoid, then you're not trying hard enough. Sarah said, looked at the differences between encryption and hashing and which ones might be used in different situations. So steganography, you can seal information within another message or a physical object so it can't be detected. It can hide anything like text, image, video, or audio. Hidden text is extracted when it gets to whoever is supposed to be going to. It'll do that. For instance, got this beautiful picture of the beach. I wish I was there. And I've got this really secret important stuff in this scroll thing I got. And I want to put it into the beach so I can then send it to somebody. So I do. And then you can obviously see it's in the file, right? We can't see a difference, but it's there. And if you had some of those tools that were mentioned by several of your classmates, you'd be able to see it. Perhaps. And of course, one of your classmates made me laugh, and that's a good thing. They talked about Stegosaurus. Many of you had never heard of steganography. I can't even say it now. Many of you had never heard of steganography, and some of you called it stenography, which is totally different. That's when you take notes like an administrative person takes notes. But I like the Stegosaurus comparison, and there were some analogies and metaphors that were kind of funny. So anytime you can make me laugh, that's a good thing. So summarizing this, we kind of, in these few discussion boards, we looked at hiding stuff and what you can do. Somebody gets in and grabs your stuff. How do you find them? How do you keep them out? What do you do? How do you look at images and see if somebody's doing some bad stuff with a tool like Autopsy? Listening to podcasts, you'll learn a lot. There's a lot going on out there. And we looked at hashing and steganography. And many of you learned a new word with steganography or stegosaurus, whichever you like. They both are good.